2 p.m. Hello and welcome to Market View. This is the Monday edition. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Lunglele Makakula. To watch us on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. We are on DSTV as well, channel 286. Coming up on Market View today, Nalsiwe Ndlangamandla sits down with the Minister for Labour and Social Security, Honourable Phila Buthelezi, for a detailed interview following an announcement by Business Eswatini saying it is withdrawing from the Labour Advisory Board. This is a board which advises the Minister on all labour-related issues. This is a tripartite body composed of government, employers and workers. This move, according to some employer organizations, would be a fatal blow to the board as Business Eswatini represents 80% of private sector in the country. Stay tuned for this conversation. Senator Sbiya will then connect with us via Zoom for today's financial markets. It seems London's FTSE 100 is flat this Monday afternoon and investors are waiting for insights from the Bank of England. And for our lead story today, the Industrial Development Company of Eswatini has developed a business plan to help businesses access funds under the company. Let's go straight to it. Our lead story, the Industrial Development Company of Eswatini has developed a business plan guide to help businesses access funds under the company. Tunzi Dlamini, the Business Development Officer, says their aim is to assist more businesses with finances whilst instilling the culture of writing winning business plans.
It became very important, which is to develop a business plan guide for our clients, mainly to assist them to capture the main information that we need that a business plan should actually capture. Oftentimes we're finding what's a business plan corner, but it is not capturing the essence of what we are looking for as IDCA. So we then decided to send a business plan guide, and also to say our clients needed to understand the business plan other than to go to somebody else, a consultant oftentimes, because about developer. And then when they bring to us and we sit down with them and we talk on the business plan, then they've got very limited information on what it entails. We show something contrary to what the business plan says. For us to say, do you really own this business that you want to do? So we said, no, I spent a business plan to simplify it and to simplify it for them so that each promoter can actually sit at home and do his own business plan based on the guide that we've given them. So what is entailed in the guide is the key things that we look for when we go to a business plan client. The main thing that we want a business plan to have is the purpose for which he wants the funding, is the background information at the promoter, is the market assessment at the promoter. Market, this is where I'm going to sell my products. Is the experience that he has, the knowledge that he has, technical expertise that he has on the product. Because we encourage people to do businesses or to be in areas where they've got an expertise, maybe through education or maybe through exposure in that particular sector of the business that they want to operate. And then we also want you, because every business has got risks, to say, when as a promoter, have you been able to identify whatever risk that might be prevalent with your business? And to say, with those risks, this is how I'm going to mitigate those risks. Those are some of the key things that you need to capture in your business plan. And then to say, I'm borrowing so much, I will be able to pay it back. How are you going to be able to pay it back? The cash flow. It forms part of the business plan. To say, then this is how I'm going to pay it back. This is how much I'm going to make. This is how much I'm going to, my expenditure on a monthly basis, which includes the repayment for the loan that you are seeking.
The Financial Services Regulatory Authority says this Investor Week it will put more focus on educating Eswatini on how they should invest for good returns. The authority is joining countries under the International Organization for Securities Commission to raise awareness about the importance of investor education and protection, and also highlights the various initiatives of securities regulators in these two critical areas. Head of Stakeholder and Consumer Affairs, Mbuso Kamete, talks more about initiatives they have planned for the Investor Week.
Talk about the technology part. Nowadays, we use technology. I think you would know, even in your case, you are moving money through technology. Technology has become so useful, especially in the investment sphere. So what we can say to consumers and the public is that as we use technology, let us be vigilant to actually ensure that we don't actually find ourselves having caught up in such things as scams, because there are a lot of those scams that actually come through technology, and they may look good, too good to be true. And we have already seen here that people through technology, they get exposed to a number of investments, some of which are not as genuine as they may look. So on that aspect, that's what we'll be talking in terms of technology. We'll also have an address from the Central Bank of Eswatini, where they will be actually teaching the nation about bonds and treasury bills. In other words, we are trying to encourage the public to invest in bonds. And bonds and treasury bills are actually considered to be much, much more safer than other forms of investment. So we see that people, not many have actually invested in this instrument. So we are encouraging people to invest in bonds. They are actually accessible through the Central Bank of Eswatini. That's where you can actually put your money and get a good return.
It's 7 minutes after 2, and that's it for our business news. After the break, Nelson sits down with the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Honourable Philip Telezi. You do not want to miss this one.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m, where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. This is Market View, the Monday edition. Business Eswatini has announced that it is withdrawing from the Labour Advisory Board, a board which advises the minister on all labour-related issues. This is a tripartite body composed of government, employers and workers. This move, according to some employer organizations, would be a fatal blow to the board, as Business Eswatini represents 80% of private sector in the country. Business journalist Nelson Ntlang'amandla sits down with the Minister for Labour and Social Security, Honourable Philip Telezi, for a detailed conversation on this issue.
Siyabonga kakhulu, Minister. Welcome to the show. Business Eswatini announced its withdrawal from the Labour Advisory Board about a week ago. Is there any new update on this matter, Honourable Minister?
They did request for a courtesy meeting with the Minister, for which they were allowed. We met, we had a meeting where they expressed an intention to withdraw from the LAB. Well, they did raise some issues which I felt needed further consultation, maybe before they finalized that they are withdrawing. I requested for time from them to engage with other partners before maybe they make it a final decision. But whilst working on that, they reduced what we had discussed in the meeting in writing. They wrote a letter in which they were still expressing a serious intention to withdraw. But then subsequent to that, we organized a meeting. I summoned the LAB. Since we are equal partners, the LAB, its government, its employer representatives, its employee representatives. But while arranging for that, we received a letter in which BE was indicating that they will not be a part of the meeting. Nonetheless, we went ahead with the meeting. I met the LAB, which I had summoned last week. All other federations were represented, save for Business Eswatini. But since we are working as partners there, an absence of one cannot stall the operations of the structure. And obviously it wasn't a strictly LAP meeting, but the minister had convened it so as to express what had been raised by BE as concerns for which I was assigning the LAB to work on. Unfortunately, I realized that none of those concerns had been raised previously with the LAB. It was new to them, they were not aware of it. But then I requested that they look into those concerns that have been raised and try to resolve them if there are any that need to be worked on. That's what we have for now. We haven't received a formal letter strictly stating that they are withdrawing, but we've only received letters to the effect that they are considering to withdraw. And one letter where they're expressing their non-attendance to the meeting that was called by the minister, which was talking about a withdrawal which had been submitted, a withdrawal letter which had been submitted before. Unfortunately, my office hasn't received a final withdrawal letter from BE. It was just letters contemplating that they will be withdrawing soon.
We have gathered, Honorable Minister, that Business Eswatini requested bilateral discussions with you, Honorable Minister, and the organization, which is Business Eswatini, of course. And we have information that the minister didn't agree to such a meeting, but instead referred Business Eswatini back to the Labor Advisory Board. What does the minister say to that? Because the Labor Advisory Board is the very board that Business Eswatini has a problem with, if I may put it that way.
Well, they did come to meet the minister. We did have bilateral engagements. That was our first engagement on this issue. But then the minister's office felt that since we are working as a tripartite, when we are working on the LAB matters, considering the LAB structure as well, it's government, it's employees, it's employer federations that are there. I felt if the issues that are being raised touches upon the LAB, it wouldn't be proper for me to try addressing them outside the structure and above the structure. So I found it prudent to make sure that I summon the LAB to say if there are any issues, please try to address them at the tripartite level before maybe I can intervene, because I cannot just work on matters pertaining to the LAB without their knowledge and without their input. We respect all partners as we are equal social partners at that level. So that is why we didn't have an opportunity to have bilaterals again outside the LAB.
We have also gathered, Honorable Minister, that Business Eswatini, representing employers, vigorously came to the defense of government this past June during the Geneva conference. What has therefore fractured the good relationship that the government and Business Eswatini have?
Well, we were all taken by surprise. We have been working very well with all federations, more so with BE. So we are still perplexed at what might have led them to reach this decision, if it is a final decision, because we are considering them a very, very good partner that we have been working with over the years, and they hadn't raised any issues before. So them coming to say they are now pulling out due to issues which they haven't even raised at LAP was a surprise to us. But we hope they'll reconsider and do what is proper. If there are any issues, raise them within the LAP and try to resolve as partners at that level. It's only if they fail to resolve them at the LAP that they can then raise them with the Minister's office to intervene, because I try not to interfere with the operations of the LAP. I can only try to assist when the LAP concedes that they are failing to resolve any issues that may be cropping up there.
There is also a concern, Honorable Minister, that the Labour Advisory Board is now moving towards democratic lines, whereas it should be a consensus. What do you say to that, Minister? Loko vele ngabe kuliciniso kangakanani noma ke kuyenteka yini vele?
Cha Eswatini siyatibona la ku media siyatibona tiyatekwa akuzange sekwendeke futhi ngeke kwendeke ekufika ekuvoteni kule tripartite structure kusebenza i-consensus. Kungaba kulakithi naphambili le kubo Geneva la siyayisambe khona singemabandla siyosebenza kuyaye kusebenza le consensus. So kokuthi la ekhaya nje kukhona laba votako bavote kanye kanye kunyathela labanye akuzange kwendeke akusiqiniso ngeke futhi kwendeke anytime soon. So ngeke sekube sizathu sekukuthi kungaba khona labathi bayaphula out ngoba that's inaccurate and it's misleading. Kufuna sihlale maqinisweni nasithatha inqumo singazami kusolicita isympathy ngokungasilo liqiniso.
Business Eswatini, being an apex employer organization, Honorable Minister, in the country, along their counterparts to COSWA, who constitute the LAB, what has been to COSWA's take on this matter of Business Eswatini leaving the LAB?
Well, maybe I won't mention what was the sentiments of the other partners in the meeting that I had with the LAB last week. But as partners, we are still trying to understand what's happening with BE, because we've been considering BE as a credible social partner who has genuine aspirations and intentions as far as serving the mandate of the business community is concerned. But the conduct that we have noticed in recent couple of weeks is really something we'd like to get to understand so that we know how to work with them going forward. We have three employer federations. It's BE, it's FirstBeak. We also have a new kid on the block, which is Buffet, which we were hoping that BE was going to hold them hand in hand and trying to transition them into the structures that we have of tripartism. But now if Big Brother is pulling out, it's unfortunate. But we're hoping that at LAP level, resolutions will be derived at, and we will have a way forward on this matter. It would be unfortunate to lose BE, but nonetheless, we can't force any partner to be a part of any alliance that we have or the tripartite structure that we have. We'll see how we can forge the way forward, but we are keeping our fingers crossed that they will reconsider their position and come and work with all other partners for the development of our economy.
I've gathered, Honorable Minister, that Business Eswatini represents 80% of the private sector. What impact will their leaving the Labour Advisory Board have on the labour landscape?
Well, as you have mentioned, it's the Apex Employer Federation that we have. There are many organizations that are affiliated to BE. We have many government parastatals that are a part of BE. We are still unsure if this position is the true position of all members of BE, but we can't interfere in that structure. We are praying that they do some housekeeping to determine if really this is what they are going to do, if this is the way that they are going to manage things now. Because we all need one another. Government needs business, needs employees. Employees need employers, they need government. We all need each other And there is no way one can survive without the others. We really need to try to resolve whatever issues that may be there and continue working together for the betterment of our economy.
Len Honorable Minister indzaba lemqoka kakhulu kwekuthi ingabane noma ke iorganization lenkhulu lenganga business Eswatini ingafuna kuphuma ku Labour Advisory Board engabe indvuna ithi kutawendekani nje nasukuma lana yini leyendiwako uqinisekisa kwekuthi kutholakala sombululo lesingiso kulendzaba lena.
Sinikele bandla emalanga langamashumi lamathathu le Labour Advisory Board ukuthi ayihlangane nathi khona letikhalo vele batisebente bese ke sebabuya basinika ipoti ukuthi sebalungise ukuthi bathathe sebenta ndlelane batisebente befike phi leto tingulumo sitawuse sesiyithatha lapho ke sisi ngoba libandla lisekhona lisemthethweni linebantu laba capable futhi kilo njengoba tinhlangano timelelekile cishe tonke siyakhola lo selitawubuya nalokuphilako as a recommendations ehhovisini lendvuna kusho lo sesesiyichuba sibheka phi lendzaba.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for taking your time on your busy schedule to bring us up to speed on this issue. We hope Guti there'll be a lasting solution.
All right, so that was business journalist Nelson Ngangamandla having a conversation with the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Philip Tselezi, after Business Eswatini announced that it is withdrawing from the Labour Advisory Board. After the break, we connect with Sanellis Bia for today's financial market.
Sabatandi ukuthi njengalokhu sivile sive sitikhulume
Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Market View. This is the Monday edition. Thank you for staying with us. We now connect with in-house economist, Mr. Sanellis Bia. Very good afternoon, Mr. Sibia. Thank you for joining us this Monday afternoon. Let's get straight into financials today. Perhaps we can start off with looking at international markets. It seems the London's FTSE 100 is flat today, and investors are waiting for insights from the Bank of England. What is happening? What's the reaction today to today's international markets?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, Lulu, and thank you for having me. So maybe let's start in the US and then we'll work our way through London, Asia, and then back to South Africa. So when we're looking at what is happening in the US, you can see that, the US is still on that positive note following those very interesting news showing that the labor market is relatively strong, and the fact that we are not getting closer to a recession within the US market. So what we are seeing happening there is, markets are responding positively to that. And we are now fast walking into what we would call earnings season. So we are just waiting to see how the earnings that companies are going to posit are going to be. But we did see those luxury brands in Europe like your Louis Vuitton taking a big hit. So we are hoping that the positive retail data that we got last week will also filter into the earnings reports that are due this week and the following weekend. We've seen, the issues with Boeing being handled. So we do expect yet another positive day for the US markets when they open today. And then moving on into Europe, what we are seeing now is that issue of demand and, the economy moving to, say, below the target for inflation. So that's the story that we are seeing in London. We saw the September inflation report, posting that inflation has actually fallen below the 2%. And that's the very same story that we are seeing throughout the broader Euro region. So right now, what markets are waiting to see is What is going to be the next stance in terms of monetary policy? Are we going to move to interest rate neutrality around 3%, or we're going to get below that interest rate neutrality just to get the markets going again? So we are seeing that demand deficiency and that bit of a loss in investor sentiment coming out of the European markets. And of course, we've already heard from the European Central Bank the fact that they are considering moving below neutrality, because it would seem in the past 3 months inflation has continued to dip, even with those interest rate cuts. So we might actually expect some very heavy rate cuts in the next coming months within the Eurozone, just to ensure that we prop up the market back to those levels, or where there is just that demand, or we are driving that demand. And we cannot run away from the China effect into this story. That weak demand coming in from China, it's also playing into that, and the elections uncertainty, is also playing into that, and we are seeing that filtering into the price of gold. Then when we move into the Asian markets, what we are seeing happening there is, just like the UK, so the Asian and Hong Kong markets are actually just waiting for cues to come from the US market in terms of the rate at which they're going to cut their interest rates. But we've seen some anecdotal evidence coming out from the Federal Reserve Bank, just detailing that they're not in a rush to get to neutrality. That's because inflation in the US is still above the 2% mark, so they do have some wiggle room not to rush in cutting those interest rates. So what we are seeing now is the markets are pricing that in, both in Japan and both in Hong Kong. And purely that's the effect of the mainland China type of movements that the overall market in the Asian region is waiting to see. But when you come into the mainland itself, if you look at the Shanghai Composite Index, it shows that it's on that upward surge. That's purely because we've seen the banks in China, coming up with those first rounds of stimulus, just those buybacks between brokers and the banks to prop up the market. So we are still seeing the effect of those, and that's actually also going to trickle into the property market, and then that's what markets in China are looking into. And when you can see your Europe markets and your Japan markets are just waiting to see if that's going to get China back on that growth spiral, on the positive growth spiral, and out of that deflationary spiral that we've been seeing over the past few months. And then moving into South Africa, we can see that as well, even though the Johannesburg Stock Exchange remains strong, it has lost a bit of ground today, while it's also still awaiting for cues to come from the US markets. But you can see that it's on that 87,000 mark, because it's being driven by the miners, and the strong demand coming from the miners has actually pushed it up a bit. And then when you look into the Eswatini Stock Exchange, we've not seen much movement in the domestic front. And then when we move into the commodities, you can see now that gold story coming into play. Gold continues to make records. If you look at the rate at which it's trading today, at the 2,700, above 2,700, which is yet another record. And the elections uncertainty is weighing in on gold, and also, the uncertainties with the Middle East situation. We thought with the death of Yahya Sinwar, Israel was actually going to let down in terms of their assaults and their efforts in both Gaza and Lebanon. But today we've seen them hit a bank, and we don't know how Iran is going to respond to that, and how the entire region is going to respond to that, and if it is actually going to trickle into the Red Sea. So gold, we are seeing it coming in as a hedging type of commodity, and purely because there's also that election coming up in the US within the next 3 weeks. Brent crude oil, you can see that it's hovering around that 40,000, that $74 per barrel, showing that that there is that uncertainty in the Middle East, but still the demand continues to weigh heavily on the price of Brent crude, because if you look at what's happening in the UK and at the overall Euro region, and China. And then when you come into currencies, you can see that, the dollar continues to be strong against the Lilangeni, trading at around 760. These are levels we last saw, I think, in July or June, July. But now we're back on those levels because of those improvements in treasury yields and the slow pace in which inflation is coming down. But if you come into Europe, you can see that the Lilangen has actually gained against the euro, and that's purely because of that deflationary spiral in demand in the eurozone in London. And then against the Japanese yen, you can see that that buyback that the Bank of Japan implemented continues to bolster the Japanese yen to date. Thank you, Lulu.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Bia, for that analysis for today's financial markets. We've come to the end of our program today. This was the Monday edition of Market View. Do join us again tomorrow at exactly 2 p.m. for Tuesday's edition. We'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.